for the price of a horse. Those captives who were not sold there were brought to the marketplace in Gaza, which, because of the great multitude of slaves who were sold there, it was called Hadrian's Marketplace. And those who were still not sold there were herded into ships and were taken to Egypt. Many died in transit, whether by starvation or by shipwreck, while many also were killed by cruel masters. This is a Roman historian, my friends. I'm not making this up. But regardless, we have more. It states in another source, innumerable was the multitude of those who were sold away as slaves at the annual market at Terebinth of Hebron. They were offered for sale in such numbers that a Jewish slave was no more valuable than a horse. What could not be disposed of there was brought to Gaza, and there sold or sent to Egypt, on the way which many died of hunger or of shipwreck. Clear enough, my friends? And a part of what we know of the Roman occupation and the later destruction of the Second Temple, which clearly explains this curse, it's also common sense that this being told to the Israelites after they were taken out of Egypt through water, through the Red Sea, or literally the Sea of Reeds, common sense would also tell us that being that the average Egyptian slave didn't have a map, they would only understand that they would return to Egypt through water also, because that's how they came out. This is actually common sense, because they did wander 40 years in the desert, not really knowing where they were going, right? It sounds plausible. Well, what if I told you that that is just what they believed before the destruction of the temple by the Romans? In the Aramaic translation of the Torah, known as the Targum Yonasan ben Uziel, now, this was written at the time of Jesus, and it paraphrases the above verse as saying, "And Hashem will exile you back to Egypt in ships by the way of the Reed Sea that you once crossed, and concerning which I said, you shall not see it again, and there you will be sold into servitude to your enemies for large sums of money as craftsmen, and afterwards you will be sold cheaply as slaves and maidservants until you will be cheapened and try to sell yourselves for nothing, and no one will take you in." Deuteronomy 28:68. Interesting, huh? And according to Black Hebrew Israelite theology, this translation was made by a Black Hebrew. And another source teaches that after the fall of the Second Temple, Josephus writes, because the soldiers were now growing weary of bloodshed and survivors appeared constantly, Caesar orders to kill only those who offered armed resistance and to take alive all the rest. The troops, in addition to those covered by their orders, slaughtered the aged and infirmed, people to their pride who might be useful. They herded them into the temple area and shut them in the court of the women. Caesar appointed one of his freedmen as their guard, his friend Fronto, to decide the fate appropriate for each. All those who had taken part in sedition and brigandage they formed against each other he executed. He picked out the tallest and handsomest of the lot and reserved them for the triumph. Of the rest, those who were over 17, he put in chains and sent to hard labor in Egypt, while great numbers were presented by Titus to the provinces to perish in the theaters by sword or wild beasts. Those under 17 were sold. Now, this was written by Josephus, who they also claim was a Black Hebrew. And to finish with this verse, it states, "By the way whereof I spake unto thee, thou shalt see it no more again." Now, friends, what does this mean? Here, the archaic English poses a problem for those who don't know Hebrew. In other words, it reads, "From when I told you that you shall not return to that place again." Where do we have a commandment, my friends, that the Almighty told us that we should not return to Egypt again? Deuteronomy 17:16. "For the Lord has told you, you are not to go back that way again." Obviously talking about the geographical Egypt and not America. Case closed. Had enough? Friends, Black Hebrews teach that they were exiled from Israel to Africa and later sold by their Muslim black neighbors to slave traders who brought them to America. They claim that when they arrived here, they spoke Hebrew and were deprived of their religion by their slave masters. It's funny that none of this has ever been documented by anyone and just really has become Black Hebrew folklore. Now, I'm not saying that Black Jews weren't also brought over with other blacks, but the idea that they were exclusively Jewish is not historical. As a matter of fact, historians teach that they were mostly Muslims and pagans, and anyone who has ever studied the Santeria or Voodoo religions know what the belief system of the vast majority of slaves were. Friends, when the slaves were brought to the French and Spanish slave ports, their masters tried to physically, brutally convert them to Catholicism. So the slaves intelligently ended up combining their African beliefs with that of Christian Catholicism. And if anyone is ever curious what those beliefs were, they should look up modern-day Santeria or Voodoo and just strip away anything Christian or Catholic from it, and then you will get a glimpse of the religion of the slaves, which wasn't a monotheistic system like Judaism, but rather a polytheistic tribal system that is still practiced in Africa today. And another interesting point is that the New Testament actually teaches that the vast majority of Jews at the time rejected Jesus and actually attributes the later Roman destruction to that fact. Now, about 98% of all black Hebrews believe in Jesus, including almost every major church doctrine. But friends, the supposedly fake Jews don't. My point with this video is not to say that the original Jews were white, but rather to teach that it really doesn't matter what color they were. And all that matters, my friends, in the eyes of the Creator is what you believe and how those beliefs shape your behavior. And again, friends, Judaism teaches that a convert is dearer to God than a born Jew. So where does blood really come in? So, my friends, I'm here to remind you that today you can decide to join the people of Israel through conversion and join the effort of bringing this world to the final messianic age of peace. If you're interested in learning more about Judaism, please visit bejewish.org. And if you're interested in converting to Judaism, please visit your local Orthodox synagogue. Thank you.